We will stand up for our people, and that's why we're here today.
Tonight, allies from one province over join the call to search Winnipeg's landfills for the remains of missing Indigenous women.
The spores that can create botulism toxin eventually, they are everywhere.
Plus, a reminder to take care with country foods.
But it was always focused on we're going out there and taking over the universe.
And sci-fi through an Indigenous lens is showcased at Pemmi-Con. Good evening, Tanse and Nina. Welcome to APTN National News. I'm Daryl Stranger. The Federation of Sovereign Indigenous Nations is voicing their support for a search of Winnipeg-area landfills for the remains of Indigenous women. A delegation from Saskatchewan that included a motorcycle group made the trek to support in person.
We will stand up for our people, and that's why we're here today.
The Red Drum Motorcycle Club and allies from Saskatchewan made the journey to Treaty 1 territory Tuesday night. A number of family members, Indigenous leadership, and supporters were at Camp Morgan at the Brady landfill to once again call for a search of Winnipeg landfills.
We come together collectively to bring out not only awareness, but we want to bring action. And we're here to call on your Premier and also the federal government, to pay attention here. There was 231 calls to action here, calls to justice.
Saskatchewan Treaty Commissioner Mary Muskwa-Culbertson believes boundaries need to be pushed before any change is seen.
If we're an Indigenous person and we're in these positions, this is what we have to do. We have to break rules. We have to push boundaries. And so we're here today to come show our love and support for the families who have set up here so diligently and have to mourn so publicly.
Assembly of Manitoba Chiefs Grand Chief Kathy Merrick called out Manitoba Premier Heather Stephenson in a strong message.
We need to find them. We need to bring them home. And I call out the Premier Stephenson. I call you out today. And you better do your work or you're not going to get it next time. And we are going to bring our women home, regardless of the governments, of the change of governments. If that man that was placed there as the new minister, if he has a heart, he's going to reach out to us and he's going to help us find our women in these landfills.
Cambria Harris says there is only one course of action.
We're not asking, we are telling you that this needs to be done. You will search the landfill, and if you will not, you will hand me the shovel and you will hand me the hazmat suits myself, and our community will go in there and retrieve our woman.
Winnipeg's Chief of Police is calling for calm and respect. Community and protester emotions are high in the city right now amid ongoing calls for the search at 2 Winnipeg-area landfills for the remains of First Nations women believed to have been slain by a serial killer. On Substack, a blog platform, Chief Danny Smythe acknowledges tensions have, quote, escalated as governments have taken positions for and against searching. Smythe also addressed an incident that took place on Tuesday night at Winnipeg Police Headquarters. Dozens showed up to protest the arrest of one of the demonstrators. According to Smythe, the WPS headquarters were, quote, besieged. The Major Crimes Unit is investigating after the windows were painted with red handprints and slogans like "Just Dig Pig." The Manitoba MMI WG2 Plus Implementation Committee has also spoken out against those actions, saying in a statement, the behaviors of some individuals at the Winnipeg Police Service Building is not condoned or supported. And Police Chief Smythe declined an interview request. And the fight to search the landfills gained support in Regina during a rally there. CTV's Hallie Mandrick reports.
A call to action for Winnipeg officials to search the landfills has sparked a movement that has reached Saskatchewan.
It's not just a one of, it's, this Search the Landfill movement is gaining traction across Canada, and we want to be a part of that.
As the fight continues in Manitoba to have Prairie Green landfill searched for the remains of Mercedes Mirren and Morgan Harris, a group in Regina is showing solidarity.
The missing and murdered Indigenous women there, they need the extra support, and we'd like to support everybody across country because a lot of our women go missing and get treated horrible and they get murdered.
I just see that it's unequal treatment depending on the color of your skin.
People gathered to sign a banner which will be making its way east.
Winnipeg is so close, it's only a 5-hour drive away, and if it can happen there, it can easily happen here.
The Red Drum Motorcycle Club is also showing support, heading to the Winnipeg landfill to partake in another rally.
Awareness is the key to everything. As long as people are talking about it, it doesn't go away.
Spence says it is an opportunity to make positive change in their community.
It's very important for men to advocate for MMIW because we all come from women, and some of us may have not been perfect in our previous lifestyles and our life changes. This is us giving back as we're getting older in life and learn from who we used to be.
This week marks 1 year since Pope Francis traveled to Canada on his Walking Together tour across Canada. APTN's Tina House takes a look back at what, if anything, has happened since that tour took place.
It's been a year and a half since a few hundred residential school survivors and Indigenous leaders traveled to Rome, Italy, for a special audience with Pope Francis. They were there to tell him about the horrors of residential school and the many abuses so many suffered. And on that final day, Pope Francis did what no other pope has done before. He apologized and promised to come to Canada. And 6 months later, here on a cold and rainy day in Musqueam, Alberta, hundreds of residential school survivors, their families and leaders gathered in the arbor to also hear those long-awaited words.
I am here because the first step of my penitential pilgrimage among you is that of again asking forgiveness, of telling you once more that I am deeply sorry. Sorry for the ways in which, regrettably, many Christians supported the colonizing mentality of the powers that oppress the Indigenous peoples.
Emotions were high, as many here still struggle every single day with the immense trauma they endured while at those institutions. Chief Tony Alexis of the Alexis Nakota Sioux Nation says he was glad to hear the apology for his people in Canada.
It gave them an opportunity, from what I hear anyway, that it allowed them now to, okay, it's been validated, it really happened, it wasn't just something that was made up. And so to hear that apology for the church to apologize gave them that opportunity to start healing.
However, Chief Alexis says little has been done since that apology in Musqueam a year ago.
For me as a leader, when I look now, my expectation is for the bureaucracy of the church to step up and to catch up to their leader and to see the direction that he's going and the intention that he had. It was very clear. He wanted to reconcile and he wanted to, move in that direction and thinking about the people who were harmed.
It's been a long time since I went down these trails.
And for residential school survivor Simple Yon, who attended in Seashelt, says the abuse he endured while there still haunts him to this day. He also traveled to the Vatican and heard the apology. He says that he was hopeful that the Pope also publicly denounced the doctrine of discovery since his visit to Canada. The doctrine is a document created in the year 1453 that states that the empires of England, Spain, France, and Portugal can colonize countries like Canada. They use the doctrine to justify their goals and approach the Catholic Church for their support. Pope Alexander V issued a papal bull stating that Indigenous people were not human nor Christian, and because they were not human, they did not have sovereignty over the land. Simple Yon says he wants the Church to go a step further and rescind the doctrine.
destroy that doctrine of discovery. They need to, they need to burn it, they need to shred it, they need to have it removed from all levels of government. So how can we move forward if they're not going to destroy that document? Because it's not only Indigenous people in Canada, but it's Indigenous people across the world.
As of June the 13th, 2023, the Catholic Church has only raised 1/3 of the $30 million residential school healing fund they promised to pay. Tina House, APTN National News, Vancouver.
All right, we have to put a brief pause on the news program. When we return, traditional food comes with a warning.
It's very important that the animal, the butchered meat, be refrigerated, be put somewhere where the temperature goes below 4 degrees Celsius.
Welcome back to APTN National News. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's cabinet shuffle on Wednesday impacts a number of departments important to Indigenous peoples, including Fisheries and Oceans, the Attorney General, and of course, the Crown Indigenous Relations. Here to help break it all down is our Truth and Politics panel, Carrie Benjo, the editor of Eagle Feathered News, and Niigaan Sinclair, a columnist with the Winnipeg Free Press. Carrie, Niigaan, it's always great to speak with the two of you. Carrie, we'll start with you. And what are your thoughts on the moves that the Prime Minister in his cabinet shuffle on Wednesday?
I think it was necessary, and I think it was a smart move to shake things up, especially now. He's showing that, he's looking at changes, and it gives the new ministers time to get acquainted into their seats before there is an election. So I think it was a smart move on the Prime Minister's part to do this.
And Niigaan, just further to what Carrie just said, so was it time for the Liberal government to make some of these moves? And what do you think was, behind this shuffle?
Yeah, certain ministers really had to go, Marco Mendicino in particular. Everyone thought that maybe Chrystia Freeland was going to head out, but that didn't seem to be the case. And certainly Dominic LeBlanc has taken on more of a role. But of course, the big surprise, I think, both for us who work in this industry, but I think across the country, the biggest surprise was the move of Mark Miller out of the Crown Indigenous Relations post, and the bringing in of a rookie minister from the GTA, Toronto. That's where the Liberals really want to shore up their support, and so they bring in, out of the 7 new cabinet ministers, 4 of them are from Toronto, which states a lot about what this coming election campaign focus will be.
Well, and Carrie, just we're building off of points here. There seems to be some frustration and disappointment in the shuffling of Mark Miller, like Niigaan just said, out of the Crown Indigenous Relations role. What do you think is behind that, and what do you think could be lost with his departure?
Well, Mark Miller, he was out in the community. He built a lot of relationships. Last year, he was out at Batoche, just walking around, not doing anything political. He was just visiting, and I think his ability to blend into the community, talk to the people at the community level, really struck a chord within the community. But I think we're overlooking the simple fact that maybe Andasangri will bring in a new perspective. This is the first time we've had someone of color in this role. And I was looking at I was reading about him, and he is a human rights lawyer. He helped with the UNDRIP. And one of the things that stood out for me was that that he wants to meet with families regarding the landfill in Winnipeg. And this is the first time I've heard somebody say that he wants to talk directly with the families and come to some sort of conclusion. So before I think we totally wipe him out and say, oh no, we don't want him, we should actually give him a chance.
That's a great point, Carrie. And Niigaan, will give the last word to you here. What can people expect from Gary Ananda Sangri in this role of Minister of Crown Indigenous Relations?
Well, new Minister Ananda Sangri's got a big list in front of him. But if you look at the background, I mean, he's been working at this for quite a while. He's been parliamentary secretary in the Crown Indigenous Relations post, working under Carolyn Bennett. He's also been on the Indigenous Affairs Committee, the House Indigenous Affairs Committee, for 6 years. So he certainly has experience. And I think the one thing that I'm writing about in my column is that he comes from displaced peoples. He's part of the Tamil minority in Sri Lanka that was in a civil war for almost 3 decades. And his father was a politician that was ousted and removed by the Sinhalese majority government. And so in his first speech, he said, "I know colonialism, I know how to come through colonialism." And I think that's quite refreshing for, I think, a lot of Indigenous peoples to hear a Minister of Indigenous Crown Relations to speak like that.
Kerry Negon, we'll have to leave it there, but always great insight. Thank you guys so much for this. An extreme wildfire in the Northwest Territories has destroyed 5 houses in the Clecho community of Betchico. Located just over 100 kilometers north of Yellowknife, the community of around 2,000 people has been under an evacuation order since Monday. Satellite detection shows the out-of-control fire has burned an estimated 114,000 hectares. More than 80 firefighters, 3 helicopters, and an air tanker have been deployed. While the fire has hit the Betchico's community of Ray, it has not crossed towards the community of Edzo. Officials say Yellowknife is not under threat at this time. More favorable winds Thursday are expected to help push the fire north of the community.
You know, our teams are doing everything we can to protect the community of Pemmi-Con, reduce and prevent the loss of additional structures, and make the community safe to return to again.
Now, there are currently more than 130 active fires in the territory. Well, northern regions are experiencing record high temperatures this year, so the Nunavut Regional Board of Health is warning communities about the risk of botulism poisoning and the importance of prevention. Botulism affects the nervous system. It can occur after eating marine mammal meat contaminated with the toxin. It is linked to the preservation and preparation methods for some traditional foods. Although rare, the disease can be fatal, with the last recorded death in 2018. Often the first symptoms are nausea and vomiting, but the toxin rapidly causes drooping eyelids, difficulty talking, of swallowing, and blurred or double vision. The Nunavut Regional Board of Health says prevention is key.
The spores that can create botulism toxin eventually, they are everywhere. You cannot really find a place where you don't find this, okay? So you need to put the animal on somewhere where there is no soil as much as possible. Now, once that is done, it's very important that the animal, the butchered meat, be refrigerated, be put somewhere where the temperature goes below 4 degrees Celsius.
All right, we do have to take one final break here. Our photo of the day and weather are next. Plus, Sci-fi Indigenous style hits Winnipeg for this year's Pemmi-Con.
That is like food for the soul. And a lot of science fiction is exactly that. It's food for the soul.
Welcome back. It's time now for our photo of the day. Today's submission comes from Charmaine Straker, who captured a picture of the love sculpture down in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania during a recent trip. Charmaine, that looks like a great photo, and I'm sure the trip was a great time from what I hear. And we want to see your photos and show us how you're spending your summer. You can send your pictures to share@aptn.ca, or you can also tag us on Instagram. All right, now let's take a look at tomorrow's weather forecast. Beginning over on the East Coast, 27 and rain in Charlottetown and 27 and rain in Halifax. 13 degrees in Nain and 23 in Happy Valley Goose Bay. 27 degrees and showers in Quebec City and rain in 29 in Montreal. More rain and 30 in Toronto and 25 in showers in North Bay. Wawa's looking at 24 in showers and 22 in showers in Sioux Lookout. 22 degrees in Churchill and 21 in Norway House. 18 degrees in Barons River and 21 in Winnipeg. Some showers in 21 in Regina and 19 in Saskatoon. Buffalo Narrows is looking at rain in 21 and 25 and clear in Uranium City. Continuing west at 26 in Fort Chippewa and rain in 22 in Peace River. Showers in 18 in Edmonton and showers in 16 in Calgary. Clear in 23 in Vancouver and rain in 24 in Bella Coola. Mix of sun and cloud and 20 in Prince Rupert and clear in 25 in Fort Nelson. 25 degrees in Beaver Creek and 25 in Rock River. 27 degrees in Norman Wells and 26 in Trout Lake. Some showers and 26 in Fort McPherson and 26 in Colville Lake. 18 in Cambridge Bay and 17 in Whale Cove. 15 and clear in Resolute and 13 degrees in Kingite. A science fiction convention in Winnipeg shined a light on the imaginations of Indigenous writers this past weekend. Sab Jonesa has more on why the genre is important for imagining our future.
What do Pemmi-Con and science fiction have in common? The answer is Pemmi-Con, a fantasy and science fiction convention in Winnipeg. Co-chair Robbie Bourget says the name is a nod to the things that carry us through.
That is like food for the soul. And a lot of science fiction is exactly that. It's food for the soul.
As the 15th annual North American Science Convention and the first to be held in Canada, Pemmi-Con saw a focus on Indigenous fantasy and sci-fi writers, a minority in a genre once dominated by white authors in the mid-1900s.
But it was always focused on we're going out there and taking over the universe. Think about that. What does that seem to reflect on? Well, that seems to reflect on humanity's tendency to go somewhere and take over. But why should we?
Indigenous writers like Wabgishig Rice and Shayla Elizabeth were amongst the many speakers at the convention. Elizabeth says that there's a lack of Indigenous female writers in the genre, but that their voices are what sci-fi is all about.
Well, the obvious is like the anti-capitalism, the anti-extraction, the anti-misogyny, the anti-racism, all of those things that were brought over by in the colonization.
Negon Sinclair, writer and department head of Native Studies at the University of Manitoba, agrees.
There's perhaps nobody better to write about science fiction than Indigenous peoples. What's science fiction? It's about fantasy, it's about other worlds, other times, other possibilities. There's perhaps nobody that thinks about that more, particularly considering the violence that we've lived under, than Indigenous science fiction writers.
The endless possibilities of science fiction means hope and healing can be found within our imagination.
You can imagine in science fiction other universes, other possibilities, places where Indigenous peoples, all of our communities speak our languages, places where colonization didn't happen, places where there isn't murdered missing Indigenous women and girls. So science fiction is the perfect venue for that.
Sab Jonesa, APTN National News, Winnipeg.
It's a great story there. Thanks for that, Sav, and that's a great way to end our show for tonight as well. Be sure to visit our website, aptnnews.ca, if you happen to miss anything from our show tonight. For all of us here, thank you so much for joining us. Miigwech, Kinanaskmatan, and have a wonderful evening.